Frigidaire. We introduced the first home freezer, the first pulsator agitator washer. And now we introduce the Frigidaire Orbit Clean dishwasher, designed with a unique wash arm that gives you 4 times more water coverage for a consistently better clean. Frigidaire, over 90 years of legendary innovation.
See the full line of Frigidaire appliances at Ventura TV Electronics and Appliances.
Hi, I'm John Malos. Welcome to this live edition of Connect with Me on the showroom floor at Ventura TV on this day. Today it's a special day. We've got a little bit of a hodgepodge, but for the most part, for the full 60 minutes, we'll be talking about Castle Air Museum up at Atwater. A guest is in the studio today. He's the executive director. We'll show you some B-roll, too, of Canseco, Jose Canseco, hitting in the batting cage the other day here in Fresno. Back with your phone calls, 436-MeTV, option 11, in just a moment. Hey, back here on the program on Connect with Me on MeTV Fresno, Comcast Channel 187 and 43.6. We're glad to have you along on this Thursday morning. A lot to talk about. The president, as you well know, just had a news conference. He is from Martha's Vineyard there, of course, in Massachusetts, on vacation. Well, things are breaking loose in Ferguson, Missouri. The shooting of that young African-American teenager. The president, for the first time, commenting on the situation and the riots that have been breaking out the last couple of nights in Ferguson. And a couple of members of the media were arrested there. So we're going to kind of follow that situation and bring it to you tomorrow if there is any breaking development as far as Ferguson, Missouri is concerned. In the meantime, a couple of nights ago, right here in the city of Fresno, we had a former Major League Baseball player, spent 17 years playing in the big leagues with the Oakland A's and other teams. Let's roll the videotape. Hey, maybe you saw this in the Fresno Bee the other day, yesterday to be exact, the front page of the sports section. There he is, Jose Canseco, the one and only, one half of the Bash brothers, back in the mid to late 80s with the Oakland A's. The other half was Mark McGwire. Here he is competing in a home run contest. There were about a half a dozen people pre-selected. Canseco, of course, is on a nationwide tour. He is riding around the country in an RV, taking part in these home run hitting derby contests in some minor league ballparks around the country. And one of those stops was right here in the city of Fresno just the other day on Tuesday night. Canseco drawing headlines all across the nation. He testified before Congress. He wrote a book and kind of blew the lid off the steroid case in Major League Baseball, exposing many players who used steroids during the time of their playing careers. And Canseco, you know, he's a fun-loving guy, very gregarious guy, a big guy. He's like, what, 50 years old now. He can still hit some out of the park. We had a chance to talk to him when he was finished swinging and showing off a little bit here in front of a sparse crowd at Chick-Chancey Park.
Well, we're going to hit some softballs, some baseballs, and we're going to take those things to the limit, see how far I can hit one. At least a softball. I'm going to crack a couple softballs. See if we're going to hit that home run thing back there, up there somewhere. Hey, if you hit the hamburger, you get a free burger? Is that how it works here? You should get free something. Yeah. If you hit one that far, you get something free. Everybody gets burgers in the ballpark. Free burgers all around. Free burgers.
And of course, that was Jose Canseco at Chick-Chancey Park. Not too often you get a chance to see a mega star like him. Not going to be in the Hall of Fame, of course, because of the steroid use and his admittance to using steroids, of course, and writing that book, but no problem there. But it was kind of a fun-loving night. They only had about 5,000, though, at Chick-Chancey. Not very well promoted by the Fresno Grizzlies. I don't know why. A couple of weeks ago, they had Bill Buckner, the former Boston Red Sox star, in Chukchansi as well. And that was not very well promoted either. They didn't have too many, and you had two megastars here in Fresno. Should have had a lot more people on hand. We're going to kind of switch gears now and talk about, you know, the fact is, on this program, Connect with Me, we have honored from time to time World War II veterans or veterans of any kind, like Chris Fernando that was here just the other day. He is a veteran from Afghanistan, opened up his own gym. I want to take you to the videotape. There is another way to honor these people, my friend, and here is another way to honor them, and that is to house and to preserve and put on display the incredible might and history of the U.S. military, the U.S. Air Force specifically. You're looking at Castle Air Museum in Atwater, about 45 minutes north of Fresno along Highway 99, one of the largest aviation museums on the West Coast, if not the country. I hope we're going to see the museum. It opened up about 32 years ago, July 18th, 1981, with 3 buildings, 5 aircraft displays, and even today, all these years later, the museum has not been funded by the government. It relies primarily on donations, daily admissions, and memberships and special event fundraisers. Are we going to see the museum here? No, we're not? Okay, let's go live to our guest then. He is here in the studio, Joe Pruzzo, the Chief Executive Officer of the Castle Air Museum. I hope we can see some other pictures inside the museum. Do you think we will, Joe?
I'm sure you will.
Okay, we're going to be back with our program 436 MeTV option 11. Joe is here. You are there. Call in, ask any questions you'd like. Back in a moment.
Frigidaire. We introduced the first home freezer, the first pulsator agitator washer. And now we introduce the Frigidaire Orbit Clean dishwasher, designed with a unique wash arm that gives you 4 times more water coverage for a consistently better clean. Frigidaire, over 90 years of legendary innovation.
See the full line of Frigidaire appliances at Ventura TV Electronics and Appliances.
Back here on the program with Joe Pruzzo, the Executive Director of the Castle Air Museum in Atwater. How are you, sir?
Very good, John. Thanks for having me on.
Good, good. I'm sorry we don't have any other pictures of the museum. I don't know what happened there.
I don't know. Yeah, we
yeah.
definitely would have loved to send some along if we.
Well, let's roll a piece of videotape
Sure.
and find out what we do have here on Connect with Me, because I'm in just as much in the dark as our viewers are. What's this right here?
That is a presidential aircraft. It's a Douglas VC-9. It's a military variant, if you will, of the famous Douglas DC-9 commercial airliner that was built by Douglas Aircraft in the 60s, 70s, and in the 80s. 3 were taken off the McDonnell Douglas production line in Long Beach by the State Department.
Oh, I see.
And converted for the presidential or the VIP airlift wing at Andrews Air Force Base in Washington, D.C., or Maryland, I should say. This particular one here found its way to us through the Department of General Services. It served for 30 years with the 89th Airlift Wing, which does all the VIP transports for our leaders. And the airplane was accessed in 2011. And actually was put up for auction, if you can believe that, and the minimum bid was $50,000. Well, there were no takers because it's an older airplane, and we, as a nonprofit organization with the mission of preserving military aviation heritage, were contacted. We submitted a letter of intent, and we waited for about 6 weeks for the selection process. And I thought, well, great. We have 49 other states to contend with, so when we got the word, the museum got the word back in July of 2013 that we were awarded the airplane. We were very excited.
Right.
President Clinton flew on this airplane, President Reagan, and virtually all the vice presidents between Walter Mondale and Dick Cheney, and First Ladies Rosalind Carter to Laura Bush. Nancy Reagan used this aircraft extensively. So it has a lot of history to it. There are the airplane's been virtually all over the Americas, north, central, south, been to Europe, and it's been to Moscow several times.
Wow, wow. So how is it that it came about that Castle Air Museum was able to obtain Air Force One and keep it to try to preserve it and have it on display for people like me and all the rest of us to go visit.
Right. Well, like I say, the museum is a nonprofit, we are eligible to receive federal surplus property once it's no longer deemed useful by the federal government. So once that happens, once we were awarded the airplane actually was in Arizona. It was kept in flight-worthy condition. So through the hard work and dedication of several businesses and individuals, plus the fuel was donated by the fuel company.
Okay.
3,000 gallons of jet fuel is a little, it will put a dent into your credit card.
Wow.
But, and of course, then we had two
but
pilots.
Was there a bidding process?
There was,
or
yeah. And
how did that work? Explain that.
How that works is all nonprofits are contacted. Let's say each state has a Department of General Services, like California, Arizona, and so on. The Castle Air Museum was at the top of the list of contacts for the Department of General Services in California, which is based out of Sacramento. So when we were contacted, we were asked, would you like to have this aircraft? And of course, at first I was told it's a regular DC-9, and I thought, well, I'm flattered. However, a commercial airliner isn't in our mission statement. But when I was told, oh, by the way, it was in the Air Force and it hauled a few presidents around, I got it.
Yeah. All right.
That's
Let's
how
take a call here real quick.
Sure.
Good morning, caller. You're on the air. What's your question?
Yeah. Is y'all guys taking any volunteers to work out there at the airport?
Yes, we are. We're always in need of volunteers for a whole myriad of jobs. We have jobs in restoration for volunteers. They're not paid. How we get a lot of things done. There's volunteer work, restoration of aircraft, preservation of aircraft, tour guides, docents, which are in our indoor museum, which you saw on the first clip, to greet visitors. Also for special events, we have also volunteers needed to maintain the grounds. The airplanes, there are about 60 of them, are on about 22 acres, and there's an irrigation system to keep the grass somewhat green.
Yeah.
And before I go on any further, we don't use potable water to water the grass. We actually use canal water from an irrigation company.
Oh, you do?
Yes, we do.
Really? So
Yeah.
how did that come about? How does that work?
Oh, well, we have a canal that borders our property. So through Merced Irrigation District and Weimer Farms, the gentleman from Weimer, the owner of Weimer Farms, actually donated the pump and the filters and all of that to get it going, because water from water's a precious commodity. So we're basically kind of
so
like
is it like
on an
recycled water?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So to answer the caller's questions, you do take volunteers.
Absolutely.
Who want to come in and help out and preserve some of the artifacts that are there.
Absolutely, sir. If you go out to our website, which is castleairmuseum.org, you can actually fill out a volunteer form and email it directly to our volunteer coordinator.
Okay, he's off the air, but go ahead. You can talk to him directly in that camera there.
Yeah, definitely. We do need volunteers for every role, even special events, to be out there to take care of people, make sure an event runs smoothly. So, like I say, anyone who's interested in volunteering with the Castle Air Museum, please go to the website, castleairmuseum.org, and click on Become a Volunteer, and a form will come up. You can fill it out online and email it right into us, or download it and mail it in to us.
All right, we're talking with Joe Pruzzo. He is the executive director of the Castle Air Museum up in Atwater. That's about 45 minutes north of here along Highway 99. One of your pit stops going on to San Francisco or Sacramento, you got to stop in and see it. It's been there for, the better part of 32 years, since 1981. So we're back with our guest, 436 MeTV, option 11. Back in a moment.
Considering solar? Whether you're ready to buy now or just exploring your options, the consultants at Solar Negotiators are here to help you. A call to Solar Negotiators is like calling 5 solar companies at once. You see, when local established solar contractors have gaps in their schedule, they call Solar Negotiators to fill them. Right now, get 5 years of panel cleaning and maintenance or $1,000 off your new solar panels. So stop wasting your time searching and call Solar Negotiators, because when contractors compete for your business, you win.
Back here with Joe Pruzzo. He is the executive director of the Castle Air Museum. I'm sure you've heard of it if you're from the Central Valley. It's up in Atwater, not that far away. We do have a phone call coming in. Good morning, caller. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Hi. I'm trying to get some information from Mr. Rizzo. My father, Senior Master Sergeant John Popchanich, retired from Castle Air Force Base, and he was part of the crew that flew around the world nonstop, refueling in the air. And we have pictures of these, and we have pictures of signed pictures of different planes and things. And I was wondering at what number we could contact someone about donating these to the museum.
Well, thank you so much. That's an honor. You can contact the Air Museum at area code 209-723-2178, and you'll ask for our curator, Mr. Tony Rocha, and he can take care of all that. And gosh, thank you so much. That would definitely add to our display and collection. And I believe the flight you're talking about was called Power Flight, and it was in about 45 hours and change in minutes. But yes.
Speaking of which, what do you think of Honor Flight? Just taking all those veterans back to D.C. and
it's fantastic.
The World War II veterans, of course, and we've had many here on this program.
Absolutely. Matter of fact, I do want to mention that the next honor flight, or there will be an honor flight October 27th that will depart from Castle. So
you will be a part of that?
I will be on hand to see them off and see them back on the 29th when they get back on the Wednesday.
So it's about a 5-day journey?
I think it's 3 days.
3 days.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And one of our volunteers went on it, a World War II vet, and he is going to be 93 years old, still very astute and very much has it together, is our restoration superintendent. He said basically, he spoke so highly of Honor Flight that if you think of something you need, someone's there to deliver it to you without even mentioning it. So it's such a wonderful, wonderful cause and organization. I can't say enough about it.
Right. Okay. Will you ever go on one of the ventures out to D.C.?
I would love to, as a chaperone. Maybe on the next one or following one. Just to just experience it. And when we talk about history, the veterans, if some of the younger folks listening in the audience, if your grandpa or great-grandpa served in the war and they want to share a story, listen to them, because that is first-hand experience of what happened and what they went through to basically preserve our liberties that we enjoy today.
Right. Another phone call coming in. Good morning. You're on Connect with Me with Joe Pruzzo, the executive director out there at Castle Air Base. What's your question? Hi, caller. Caller, are you there? Okay. If you do call in, 436-ME-TV, option 11, do turn down the sound. There is a 10-second delay, so hopefully we won't have too many problems there. If you do that, just listen to us on the phone. We'll ask the questions, or you ask the questions, and we'll try to answer the best we can. Let's roll another piece of videotape. Not sure what we're going to see here, but maybe you can just kind of take us through the play-by-play here.
That's our main
Joe?
entrance.
Okay. Is that off of Highway 99?
Actually, it's off of Santa Fe Drive. So if you're coming from Fresno, what you'll want to do is exit the Buhack Road exit.
Okay. What are we checking out here, Joe?
We're seeing our restoration hangar, which is on the Castle Airport. I was talking with Mr. Bud Butts there, one of our restoration supervisors.
What's that plane behind you there?
That's a Grumman S-2 tracker, and that was a carrier-based airplane mainly, and it was used for anti-submarine warfare.
So you're restoring that?
Yes. That actually came up. There was a donor down in, he's up in Auberry, actually. Mr. Ordinella donated that to the museum. and that was actually brought up on a house-moving trailer to the museum. So it took from Visalia to Castle to Atwater. It took 5 hours because you couldn't come up Highway.
So let me
99
understand this correctly now. You bring these planes in.
Correct.
And you restore them at a cost.
Correct.
And it's not cheap to do that.
No.
And so when you after you restore them, you put them on display and try to preserve them. Is that right?
Correct, John. Yeah.
Okay.
What we do now, we actually raise the monies from donors to pay for that.
Okay.
So
and you have fundraisers.
Absolutely, fundraisers. Many of these airplanes flew in. Many of them were taken, disassembled, and trucked in. I've seen some.
Really?
Oh, yes.
And then reassembled.
Exactly.
In your hangar.
Exactly.
Wow.
We get all the tech orders as to structural breakdown to do it correctly without butchering anything.
Butchering anything.
Because then it wouldn't be historically accurate. I have been asked, well, do the airplanes fly? No, they don't fly. They're restored to a static display status. And meaning that the oils are drained out, the airplane is not
How do you
flyable.
move them then from place to place?
We tow them, actually.
You just tow them?
Tow them.
Okay.
We have an easement to where we can tow them.
And how did they get to Castle? Were they towed, or how were they transported there?
If they were flyable airplanes, they were flown into Castle and then towed from the flight line over to the Air Museum.
And that was their last flight?
Yes.
Coming
correct.
in?
Correct.
Wow.
Now, when they're disassembled and put together, reassembled in the hangar, stripped, painted, restored, sometimes it could be, even if you can't find the part, looking at, we have machinists, retired machinists, civil engineers, you name it, that will remanufacture the part.
Yeah.
To spec. We try to make the interiors as authentic as possible, the instrumentation, whatever it may be, because we really want to put out a historically correct product, because we're a venue, but we're also a history lesson.
Yeah, right. You're an air base of record, so to speak.
Exactly.
It's almost like you say the New York Times is the paper of record. You're kind of the base of record, and
Correct.
you're one of the largest on the West Coast. Talk about that.
Yes, we are.
If not the largest.
Yeah. Yes, we are. Thank you. We actually have approximately 60 aircraft on display on about 22 acres. We have about 10 aircraft still out. Now, how this happened is way back. I want to just back up a little bit. When the Air Force decided in the late 70s that every air base should have a small air park, a heritage program, if you will. So it was never envisioned to be a large air museum. How that happened is through the exuberance and the dedication of local businesses, individuals, chambers of commerce. The Air Museum blossomed because this was a crown jewel for the region. There's nothing like it around. And it evolved into today what is the largest aviation museum between
on the West Coast?
On the West Coast, between Southern California and Seattle, Washington.
Okay.
And, what a lot of people don't realize is right here in our backyard. We're about a mile off the Highway 99. So if you're coming north on Highway 99, first of all, once you get just north of Madera, off to the right, you'll see a billboard.
Okay, in relation to the Applegate exit off of 99, where's your base?
We are, if you're going north, you will exit the Buhack Road exit.
You mentioned
It'll
that
say
earlier.
Castle Airport.
Is that before or after the Applegate?
That's prior. That's
prior
about
to
2 miles prior to.
And
the
then after you
Applegate
get off that exit,
you'll come to a stop, and there'll be a sign. It'll say Castle Air Museum. Make a left. You'll make a left onto there and follow it around.
What does it cost to get in? Because you rely on those admissions. You rely on donations.
Absolutely.
You rely on the fundraisers, but you have no government assistance. So
No,
people
we
have
do
to
not.
know that it's strictly, almost to a certain extent, it's almost donations,
Right.
with the exception of the admissions. Now, what does
Correct.
it cost to get in?
Well, on an average day for an adult up to 18 to 60, it's $10 per person.
Okay.
Youth normally is $8. Right now, up until the 30th, we're running a summer youth special.
Okay.
Ages 6 to 17 with a regular adult admission paid is $5.
You do field trips?
Oh, absolutely. We do a lot of school field trips. We average probably around 15 to 1,800 school children a year that come through the museum from as far as from Visalia to Stockton.
Right.
And we also provide, if the tour would like, a couple of our volunteer tour guides who more than likely are former Air Force or Navy retirees. We have a number of naval aircraft as well. We have, it's really a joy to go out and listen to the people, the visitors, because we receive visitors from all over the globe.
I know you do.
Yeah.
And I was looking online a little bit about your base and some of the stuff that you sent me, some of the information, very
Sure.
interesting. And even I, who I've lived here since '96, have never been there and didn't know much about it, even though I read some articles in the Fresno Bee. But the history of it is fascinating. We're going to get into that. You know, Joe said earlier, one way to honor these veterans that come back from war, even the ones that are retired from World War II or any other war, the best way to honor them is to listen to some of their stories. And the second best way, I think, to honor them is to put up these artifacts for display and try to preserve them, house them in a way so everybody can enjoy them. Back with our program here on Connect with Me and your phone calls, 436-ME-TV, option 11. Do call in. Castle Air Base is the topic today up in Atwater.
When you like Ventura TV Appliance on Facebook, it's nice. But when you love the Whirlpool appliances we deliver, it's even better. Our website is cool, and it's a good place to start, but you really should touch the merchandise before you buy. Touch the new Whirlpool Ice Collection. It offers a modern style made to create an inspiring kitchen experience. Save big on this Whirlpool Black Ice or White Ice kitchen. Come in to Ventura TV Appliance and touch the merchandise today.
We're back here on the program Connect with Me on Comcast Channel 187 and 43.6. The focus of the program is Castle Air Museum up in Atwater, of course, not too far from here, about 45 minutes if you abide by the speed limit. But if you drive like I do, maybe you can make it in about 30, 35. No, that's speeding, though, isn't it?
Well, that's breaking the sound barrier, but you know.
Yeah. That's well, in Air Force One, we could get there in about 20 minutes.
Oh, I'm sure you could. Yeah.
I'm glad you're here because I love it when we have a program dealing with the Air Force or the military per se. And I want you back here again. We got to take a tour of that museum.
Oh, definitely, absolutely.
You know,
absolutely.
I mean, we're here to talk about Air Force One. I mean, mainly, but you know, I want to see the inside of that museum.
Absolutely, you know, there's.
And we're not going to see it today, but we will on future programs here.
We will definitely. You know, it has. If you're a World War II buff, probably the most complete collection of World War II bombers you will see in the whole state.
Yeah.
You know, plus it through the 50s, Korean War aircraft, Vietnam era aircraft, and you know, airplanes that are relevant today. The F-15 Eagle, which you know, the 144th Fighter Wing out here now flies. You know, the Tomcat, the F-14 of Top Gun fame.
Well, let's see if we can stretch this out to an hour to talk just about Air Force One. Let's roll the videotape, my friends. We're going to beat this thing into the ground.
Oh, you bet.
Roll the videotape and we'll see what's on there. And so we're going to, I guess this is, you know, it's a magnificent plane. I don't care how you look at it. Air Force One is Air Force One, whether it's used or not, right?
Correct. These aircraft here were actually used when the president, vice president, first ladies couldn't fly the larger aircraft into a smaller airfield.
Oh, I see.
But you know, it's Air Force One. Anytime the president flies on it. Now, if you look there to your right, you'll see the big VIP chair
Yeah,
with
I see
the
that.
desk, right?
Yes, that's where the president sat. right?
Exactly. And then, of course, in that stateroom is where congressional leaders would sit or cabinet members discussing.
Those are the actual seats?
Yes, they are.
They are.
Yes, they are.
They're not replacement seats.
No, they're not. And if
Okay.
that phone right there on the wall is a secure line phone, so
Really?
the airplane was equipped with a secure line operations officer, and he or she could connect the president or vice president
Wow.
with anyone in the world.
Okay.
As secure line communications.
So this was the plane, the home of President Reagan.
President
Clinton.
Reagan,
How about
Clinton.
Bush too?
Bush too, yes, up until 2005.
Up
you
until
know.
2005, he
Yes,
used this
yes.
plane. So during 9/11, he was on this plane?
No, he was not on
Not
this
on
plane.
this plane.
He was on the 747. Matter of fact,
Okay.
he was in Florida doing a school reading in a school class, and he was notified of the terror attacks. And
Right.
what was done is they flew him with the 747 or all
Yeah.
around the country prior to getting him back to Andrews, because
Yeah.
quite frankly,
I think he stopped in the Midwest someplace.
He did. He stopped in, I think, Louisiana, and I think in Omaha, and somewhere.
Yes, somewhere in Omaha. But I think this plane, like you said, was used as a smaller version to get into
Correct.
some of these smaller airports
Correct.
around the country.
Right.
Because the 747, you saw Obama came in earlier this year.
Right.
With that big, gigantic,
Yes.
huge plane.
It takes a big runway.
And it takes a huge runway to put that thing down and take
Yes, it
off
does.
again.
Oh, yes,
as you
it
well
does.
know. So
You know,
another
so,
piece of videotape is rolling here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
if
this is it right here.
If the White House Secretary Leon Panetta during the Clinton years, if he wanted to fly out
He
to
flew in this?
I'm sure he did. If he wanted to, as an example, fly out to Monterey, that's what he would fly out in.
Okay.
Because you couldn't land that big airplane there.
Would he have Air Force bombers accompanying him in that plane?
No, but typically there would be Air Force fighters or Air National Guard fighters, as there is today. Anytime the president is aloft, he has a fighter umbrella.
Right.
Also accompanying the president, like when President Obama came in, you saw that they had the big tilt rotor Ospreys. Those would come in. And, of course, a large cargo aircraft would come in. That would
What are
be
we looking at here?
That's the secure communications operator panel. Now, you see a lot of sensitive equipment has been pulled out simply because of security issues.
Yeah.
They didn't pull out the secure line fax. That's a little vintage there.
Really?
But that's where he or she would sit. There'd be a computer there. We are trying to restore that to somewhat of an accurate appearance.
All right, so tell us the story about, now that's the cockpit right there,
Yes,
right?
it is. It's very much a civilian airliner type of cockpit. It does have military type transponders in it that,
Wow, look at that.
IFF, identification friend or foe.
So this is like a regular airliner, only a beefed up version
Yes.
of a civilian airliner. In
Yes.
what way?
Well,
communications?
you would, yeah, the communications, the electronic gear aboard, and it's also configured, to, the stateroom is configured to where the president, vice president, whoever could be aboard, and be in a secure environment. The galley toward the back is huge. I mean, you wouldn't see that on a commercial airliner.
Yeah.
They literally could carry all the food they needed for an entire trip if they needed to. Toward the rear of the aircraft by the galley are two lavatories. If they were going overseas with it, they would actually fill one galley full of stores. Because here in the continental United States, if the aircraft, let's say, went to Kansas City, and then go on to Omaha and then maybe Spokane, okay, well, then the Secret Service agent plus an Air Force steward aboard would actually go out and purchase food or whatever they needed. If they were going to a foreign country or overseas, they would take everything they needed, obviously for security reasons. You didn't want to risk getting food that might be tainted or anything like that.
So wherever the president went overseas, they would bring along enough food for the length of the trip.
Correct.
Whether it's a week or 10 days.
Correct.
Whatever it might be, not risking food poisoning or any other
Correct.
possibility that could
That is
happen.
absolutely correct. And when even now, and for the viewers out there, there were no paper plates or plastic forks, like you get on an airliner. It was fine china, it was glassware, it was silverware. So the pilots will tell you that flew this aircraft, the aircraft flew a little tail heavy, because that's a lot of weight back there.
Is that right?
That is exactly right.
Wow. So that's amazing. Okay, Joe Pruzzo is here from Castle Air Museum, and that's about 45 minutes up the road, the Highway 99, of course, from Fresno. We're going to be back with our program. You can call in and ask any questions about Air Force One on display. We're back in a moment.
Don't you ever hit me again!
Chief, I think we got a hit on our hands.
MeTV Fresno, now on Comcast Channel 187.
Back here on the program, glad to have along Joe Pruzzo from Castle Air Museum up in Atwater, not too far away, and you can easily just drive yourself up there, go up there with some friends on a weekend and check it out. You're open on weekends, are you?
Absolutely. We're open 7 days a week.
Even on Sundays?
Even on Sundays.
Wow.
The only days we are closed are, of course, Thanksgiving Day, Christmas Day, New Year's Day, and Easter. Right now we're on our summer hours. Summer hours run from April 1st through September 30th, and it's 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. October 1 through March 31st, we go winter hours, which are 10 to 4. But it's every day except those 4 days I mentioned.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. So I want you to take us through the process of how, okay, we have a phone call here, and you can do that after.
Certainly.
Good morning, you're on Connect with Me. Go ahead.
Great. It's overdue. I'm glad you're finally covering that Air Force One. It's been there a year. Well, not quite a year, but I'm glad you're taking the time to talk about Air Force One. I have a question for your guest. Now, saying that Nancy Reagan made good use out of that aircraft, is it because she had an affinity for that particular aircraft, she was comfortable in maybe the layout of that plane, or she liked the model of plane, or is it that she spent so much time traveling from the East Coast to the West Coast where the Reagans had their home? That's one question. I have another question, too.
Well,
that you're saying was the military version of the DC-9?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So that's the one that D.B. Cooper made famous because of the rear stairway, if I'm not mistaken, because you could actually override safety systems, open up that hatchway in flight, and that's how D.B. Cooper
disappeared,
parachuted to safety. I'm not sure if it was the aircraft. It's been too many years.
Yeah.
How much money did he have? Was it this plane he disappeared? How much money? What was it, about 500,000 or something?
I think it was some huge
Or into the
amount
millions.
for that time period. I remember it well. It was in the early 70s.
Yeah.
It actually was. It wasn't a DC-9. It was a Boeing 727. A tri-jet, and it had the same type of aft air stair that the DC-9 had. And then, of course, once DB did that, and of course he was never found, Boeing went ahead and put a system in to where it could not be opened in the air.
Well, I mean, he literally disappeared into thin air.
Yeah, and he's still out there somewhere.
It's kind of a play on words, but it's true. I mean,
but
how does somebody do that?
Yeah, exactly. To answer your question on Mrs. Reagan, yes, you are correct that she did make trips out to the West Coast. It was just, there were 3 aircraft like it, and this one was just assigned to her. I don't know the particular reason, but she also
these people have a choice of aircraft or not?
Typically not. It's which is ready and which is available. Now, if it was at the time, the Reagans were in the White House, it was a 707, 4-engine transport, not nearly as big as the 747 that's flown today. But she did use it a lot on trips up to the New England, New York for campaigning. Also, coming out to the West Coast to their ranch, Simi Valley.
They're the Clintons and the Gores.
Yes.
On board the plane, I'm assuming.
Yes.
And
yes.
I wonder what year that was.
Well, Clinton's, used the airplane from, about 1993 when they came into office until they left just prior to 2000.
Yeah.
Mrs. Clinton actually was responsible, or the Clintons actually were responsible for the blues and gray tones in the airplane. When the airplane was delivered, taken right off the assembly line in 1975, as you remember, the 70s, colors were a bit loud, reds and golds, and that was the interior of the airplane, even during the Reagan years.
And you would think.
And then they changed it out during the Clinton era.
The Clintons came into power, of course, in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
That plane was built in the 70s.
Right.
You would think that the government, transporting our president and other government, would have a plane that's a little bit more modern, a little bit younger, a little bit newer than a 20-year-old aircraft.
Right. Well, the airplane really doesn't have that many. They term an aircraft by flight hours.
Right,
so
but
the
all the
airplane,
stress on the bolts and the structure of the plane, that's how you judge it, isn't it?
well,
Am I correct about that?
It's by flight hours. Is really how they judge it.
Okay.
So if it has 16,000 flight hours over a 30-year period, that's really known as low time. There's a lot of airplanes flying today that are, if they're 30 years old, have maybe 80 or 90,000 flight hours on them. And it's all in cycles. So the airplane didn't fly all the time.
For as many hours as that plane flew from 1975 until the Clintons got into office, do I have to tell you how often the president travels, or how often the first lady travels,
right,
or the secretary of state?
Right. Well,
They're
they didn't
always flying.
Correct.
Somewhere.
Correct. And like I say, they had 3 of that type, and they had the other aircraft as well. So they weren't really flying all the time, like every day.
Yeah.
So, which is, unlike commercial airlines, they go with
day
cycles.
in and day out.
Day in, day out. Like your average airliner might do 25 takeoffs and landings in a day. And that's what really puts the stress on them, is constant pressurizing, depressurizing. And again, these aircraft, after so many hours, were just taken into a hangar and stripped down completely and inspected, x-rayed, whatever.
Okay, so with this one here, it was a bidding process. You were bidding against, 49 other states,
right,
as I understand it, and it came down to you in Arizona.
Exactly. And
how did that happen now? Who were you bidding? How did the bidding process come about?
Well, it's a screening process is what it is. So the Castle Air Museum submitted the letter of intent right away.
To who?
To the
U.S. government?
Department of General Services.
Okay.
That has authority for disposing of federal surplus
property. Did you have to pay them money to acquire the plane?
We had to pay $5,000 to get the title to the airplane.
Okay.
That is title, lock, stock, and barrel. So we own the airplane.
All right. Caller, go ahead. You're on the air.
Oh, yeah. What about Cold War football when Obama visited Fresno?
What's that? Hello, caller, you there?
I think he's talking about football, the bag that has the codes. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Well,
okay. Hey, great question. I just didn't understand the question.
Right.
You got to, when you call in, you got to speak up a little bit. But good question.
Yeah.
It's okay. Explain what it is. I know what it is.
If the president was aboard this airplane, of course he would take that briefcase with him. That would give all the codes for the national command authorities
for nuclear weapons.
For nuclear weapons, you bet.
Yeah. That goes wherever the president goes.
Absolutely. It does not leave his side.
So that briefcase was on this plane many times.
Absolutely.
Does anybody know what that briefcase looks like?
I've never seen it, but
is it gray or black in color? Is it red?
The one I've
seen,
the
bat phone, maybe.
Yeah, the one I've seen in pictures is a dark, almost a black, like a brown.
And it's like handcuffed to one of the Secret Service agents' wrists. Am I correct about that?
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Yeah,
wow.
You're very correct about that. This airplane also, after 9/11, was modified. George W. Bush and Dick Cheney insisted that they wanted real-time news feeds on the airplane wherever they were flying. So they actually installed a television on the aircraft to be able to access ABC or CNN or whoever it might be, to see if, because obviously they were going to be the first on the scene for any attack or anything like that. So
wow. So that was during the Clinton or Bush?
Bush
installed that after 9/11.
After 9/11,
okay.
yeah.
Okay, caller, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Yeah, I grew up in the Sunnyvale area. Had the P3 Orions always doing weather checks and sub hunting and stuff. I was wondering, do you have any of those restored or out there on your base?
No, unfortunately, we do not have a P3 Orion yet. It is on our wish list to the United States Navy, but hopefully we will get one. And the Navy is good about when they retire an airplane, flying it in, so that makes it a lot easier to acquire.
Who flies this plane in, by the way? Who flew it in?
Actually, 2 pilots that fly or type rated in the DC-9. They work for a fire company up in Oregon, and the fire service is starting to employ old jet airliners now as fire bombers.
Okay. Talking with Joe Pruzzo of Castle Air Museum up in Atwater, which isn't too far from here. It's just a hop, skip, and a jump. They're open all the time except on all the major holidays. So you can go up there, $10 a pop, get in the museum, go take a tour of Air Force One. Quite a scene indeed, even though the plane is retired. It once was used by former presidents. Back here, 436, MeTV option 11. Back in a moment.
Considering solar? Whether you're ready to buy now or just exploring your options, the consultants at Solar Negotiators are here to help you. A call to Solar Negotiators is like calling 5 solar companies at once. You see, when local established solar contractors have gaps in their schedule, they call Solar Negotiators to fill them. Right now, get 5 years of panel cleaning and maintenance or $1,000 off your new solar panels. So stop wasting your time searching and call Solar Negotiators, because when contractors compete for your business, you win.
Back here with Joe Pruzzo, we're just talking about that plane at the bottom of Huntington Lake. We had a person here representing Huntington Lake on this program talking about that plane that went down.
Gosh,
yeah, it's too bad you can't get that plane out of the water and preserve that.
True. Yeah,
piece of
well,
aircraft.
we actually have one identical to it, or just about identical to it, that is a B-24 Liberator, and they were those aircraft were flew out of Hammer Field, which is now Fresno Yosemite International Airport. During the war years, our B-24 Liberator came from Bolivia. It went down after the war, was surplus, and those taken apart and shipped up here.
Shipped, reassembled.
Right. It took 8.5 years to restore it.
Yeah, I believe it.
But,
to its original condition?
Correct. At least cosmetically. People don't realize that aircraft, like it's in Huntington Lake, was the most numerous combat aircraft ever built. There was over 18,000 of them built. Today, there are about 17 left in existence.
I often think about this because of the technology, and everybody says we've never had technology. Technology has never been as great as it is now, and I disagree with that. Just because you and I haven't had it, with this,
exactly.
We did go to the moon in 1969.
Yes, we did.
So somehow the technology was there.
Yes.
It just wasn't available to the average person.
Exactly.
Am I right about that?
You are correct about that. And what a lot of people don't realize is the engineering genius that, first of all, Germany had scientists that were really engineering geniuses. And
but they didn't get to the moon.
No, they didn't.
We did.
But we did with their scientists who came to the America after the war. They did not want to be captured by the Soviet Union. They came.
They came after the war.
They came after the war. Well, Albert Einstein escaped before the war.
Before the war ended.
And warned basically or informed President Franklin Roosevelt that Nazi Germany was working on a nuclear device, and then that encouraged us to have the Manhattan Project, and of course, because
the rest is history.
The rest is history.
Yeah.
But Werner von Braun was a chief designer in the Apollo program and getting us to the moon and
Right,
stages.
but and you've probably been to D.C. and you've gone through the Air Museum and you've seen the capsule for Apollo 11. Okay, I used to live in D.C.
Oh, yeah.
All right, as you know, that capsule you could fit right on top of our set here. Very
Exactly.
small. Okay, 3 astronauts in there. That capsule had incredible technology on it.
Oh, yes.
For it to go to the moon, to rendezvous with the lunar module.
Lunar module, yes.
Okay, and the way the whole setup was with the lunar module going down, then coming back up, and the rendezvous back to Earth, technology had to be incredible back in 1969.
It's mind-boggling, you know. And if you look at, there's an aircraft we have on display, the SR-71 Blackbird, super secret, stealthy. They stumbled onto stealth really on that airplane quite by accident.
Where is that?
It's at our museum. There
Is
were
it
only,
on display?
Absolutely. Yeah, there are only 32 of those built, 20 left or 21 left in existence.
They were built in the 80s, I want to say?
Oh, no,
or
they were
much earlier.
That is late 50s, early
50s?
60s
Okay.
design and
All right.
building. And, you know, the airplane, there was nothing. They were retired in the 90s.
Designed to avoid radar detection, I believe.
Yeah, exactly. If you look at it, you know, it's got rounded edges and is built
Yeah.
mainly out of titanium. And
Yeah.
it was built by Lockheed, and it has never been downed by enemy fire. It is so fast and so high. So,
Yeah. Okay, caller, what's your question?
Yeah, good morning, John, and a guest. Maybe a couple of them, maybe 3, but I'll keep it short. The
Okay.
B-52 bomber, is that still flying? That's the first question.
Uh-huh.
And I think I've never been to Castle yet, and I'm hopefully soon. And I'm hoping you have one to view.
We do.
And then, are they all Air Force vintage aircraft that are there to view? By chance?
Well, there are a lot of Air Force aircraft that are there to view, vintage, World War II on up through current, but we also have a nice collection of naval aircraft as well, from the Vietnam era on up to, you know, the F-14. So we are building that collection as well, because we are, in, you know, military aviation heritage basically includes the Army, the Navy, the Coast Guard, the Marine Corps, and the Air Force. Now, to answer your question, we do have a B-52 on display. It's in a Vietnam-era camouflage scheme. It did fly over Hanoi during the linebacker missions that brought the war to an end in December of '72. And B-52s, yes, are still flying.
Because they're reliable.
Well, yeah, it's like a truck. You can strap anything to it and it works. Now, the version that's still flying is the last version, and it's got the big, more fuel-efficient, powerful turbofan engines on it, 8 engines.
Right.
And just to give you an idea, the taxpayers got their bang for the buck out of that system, because the first B-52 flew in 1952, and they're expected to fly until 2044 with updates and all. So, yes, they are still flying, and we'd love for you to come up and view the B-52 on display.
Are you familiar?
I look forward to coming. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Now, we recently had a guest, well, within the last year or so, year and a half, the brainchild behind the B-1B bomber.
Oh, yes.
That really was the one aircraft that put an end to the Cold War, because the Russians were afraid of that B-1B bomber. They tried to build a similar version, but could not do it. And so he was here. He was talking about it. He showed pictures of him and Ronald Reagan. He had a private meeting with the president, and that B-1B is still flying.
Yes, it is. Matter of fact,
it's amazing.
They're deployed around the world. They're in a conventional role, but you know, it gave us.
He said that plane can fly like 200 feet off the ground.
Yes.
Avoid radar detection.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
fly at incredible speeds.
Yeah, B-1 is a great airplane. It's a matter of fact, you know, the Air Force has something called the irresistible force. You have
What does that mean?
You have 3 bombers. You have the B-52, which is tried and proven, and you know, vaunted.
That's the tank.
Yeah. Then you have the B-1 that can come in, you know, really at 200 feet or less. And then you have the B-2 stealth bomber. So, you know, you have these assets that can do a lot of different things that really
was that stealth? Was that part of the Skunks work? Or
no, the stealth bomber was actually part of Northrop, and it really is part
on Long Island.
No, that was
up
well,
north.
yeah,
Long Island,
Grumman,
right?
Northrop Grumman is there.
Northrop
now.
Grumman in Long Island, right?
The B-2 was actually developed in Southern California at Northrop, and it's really a redesign, more or less, of the flying wing concept that Jack Northrop developed in the late 1940s. It didn't go anywhere. But the Skunk Works actually was in Southern California, where the U-2 was developed, the SR-71, and the F-117 stealth fighter.
Okay, but that wasn't part of the original stealth that was built in the late 50s, right?
No, there was no stealth built in the late 50s. They stumbled on it by accident with the SR-71.
I see.
Because if you look at it, if you punch in SR-71 Blackbird, you'll see these blended edges, and they didn't even think about that. They just, oh gosh,
they just accidentally
stumbled on it.
Somebody discovered it.
Kelly Johnson, who was a genius at Lockheed.
Yeah. Okay. Are we going to take a break here, or just go straight through? Got 3 minutes left. Okay. So, you know, I want to go through Air Force One just real quick one more time.
Sure.
And I just want to ask you, if anybody out there watching, can they take a tour of this plane inside?
Yes. Currently, due to the heat, it's open on Saturdays from 10 a.m. to noon.
Are there any presidential napkins that people can steal, or cups they can steal, or souvenirs they can steal?
We're working
on
that.
I know
you are. I know you are. Yeah, absolutely. Now, what? It's $10 to go on the tour.
On the plane?
On the plane, we have docents aboard that can tell you what happened, what's going on, where the airplane's been, who sat in this seat, and so on, who got trapped in the forward lavatory. That was Vice President Quayle. But anyway, that's a whole other story. And of course, the pilot that flew this aircraft was there when it arrived, and he lives in Tucson, Arizona. And he's a member of the museum, so he had a lot of good stories about the Clintons and Vice President Quayle and the Secret Service. And
that's funny.
Because you're in the inner circle.
That is funny. So he locked himself in the bathroom.
Well, actually, what happens is the plane comes in. They do what they call a quiet arrival. Okay. Yeah. And they come in, they land at night, they shut the lights off, turn the auxiliary power unit down.
How do you come in on a quiet arrival? Because, I mean, obviously a plane coming in, what do they do?
Well,
they can't shut the engines off, right?
No, but when they taxi in, as soon as they come to a stop, they shut everything down, so it goes dark. Okay.
Oh, okay.
And the Secret Service scampered off. Vice President Quayle, unfortunately, was in the lavatory when the power went off. So the pilot heard a knock on the door, and he got the vice president out and basically said,
turn you back around here so they can see you.
Vice president said, or the pilot told the vice president, "We're Secret Service is looking for you." And he just said, "Oh, let them sweat," and got off the airplane, and the Secret Service was going nuts, thinking they lost the vice president. So those are some little anecdotal things. But we do have, we're talking about fundraisers, and if I can, I'd like to talk about a couple that are
we got 1 minute. Go ahead and show these right here. Here, take that, Joe. Look out there. Get back in the frame there so everybody can roll up to the desk there. Don't be afraid.
Okay.
What do we got here? We got about a minute left.
We have a dinner dance variety show coming up on September 6th out on the flight line with aircraft around and a flyby. It's going to be a great evening with Andrew's Sisters Tribute, Bob Hope impersonator and all. So please come to that.
Thanks for the memories, right?
Thanks for the memories. And then beyond that, we've got coming up, we talked about the cockpits and everything. Coming up on August 31st is Fall Open Cockpit Day, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And you'll see a lot of the aircraft open for viewing, which you normally don't get to see.
All right, give those 2 dates one more time.
August 31st, we've got Fall Open Cockpit Day. Be sure to attend.
Okay.
And on September 6th, Saturday evening, we have Thanks for the Memories, a salute to the greatest generation, dinner dance, variety show. It'll be great. Bob Hope impersonator in from Vegas, so please make that on your calendar.
All right. Well, I should say thank you for the memories.
Oh, my pleasure. We'll do a lot more.
All right, Joe, you're coming back, I believe.
Yeah, you bet.
All right. Joe Pruzzo, the executive director of the Castle Air Museum, up in Atwater, not too far away, a hop, skip, and a jump, 45 minutes from Fresno. Back with another edition of Connect with Me tomorrow. We've got the pilot of Skywatch, Fresno Police Department, tomorrow right here, Larry Hustetti. See you tomorrow and have a good day.